What's up, everybody? This is Fred Rachani of TSC News. Kimbo Slice, MMA legend, YouTube legend, Bellator MMA fighter, former UFC fighter, former Elite XC fighter, former boxer, former street fighter, well-known celebrity. Unfortunately, has passed away. Passed away Monday night, reportedly due to heart failure, at the young age of 42. This just coming months after his fight with Dada 5000, Defeer Harris in Bellator. That was a pretty horrible fight, largely because both men had no cardio whatsoever. They both looked extremely out of shape. Both looked like they didn't really belong in the cage. And Dada 5000, he almost died. I think he spent a couple weeks at the hospital, at least a week. He almost passed away. And thankfully, he's gotten a little bit better. And, he's out of the woods. At least it seems like it. And Kimbo, well, he unfortunately failed the drug test and was suspended only 90 days by the Texas Athletic Commission. 90 days? Well, he was suspended 90 days, and then Bellator said, you know what? This guy's 42. He's not getting any younger. Let's strike the iron while it's hot, and let's book him for our London show against James Thompson. And it was kind of a controversial move, but, made sense ratings-wise, and Kimbo's a huge star, and for people that said, oh, Kimbo's done as a draw, I mean, he proved those people wrong when he fought Dada 5000, and before that, Ken Shamrock, and he was getting ready to fight James Thompson, and here we are just a few weeks before the fight, and now he's gone. And for people that maybe aren't familiar with Kimbo Slice, I'm going to put it to you this way. I'm going to keep it real here. He was not a great fighter. He was not even a good fighter. But he was a guy that was one of the first YouTube stars. I think he became famous before YouTube was even bought by Google, all right? That's a long-ass time ago. That's like 2005-ish we're talking about here. He blew up due to his street fights, his look with the beard and the grills. I mean, the dude just looked like a killer, and he looked like a star. Hell, I think he even got his break, not even in MMA originally. He got it in porn. He was like a bodyguard, I'm pretty sure, for Bang Brothers. And then around that same time, he was doing street fights. And he just caught on, and everybody was like, oh my God, this Kimbo Slice guy. And he blew up. I mean, the guy blew up. He was even in World of Warcraft commercials. Think about that. World of Warcraft commercials. And at one time, World of Warcraft had about 12 million active players monthly. Crazy to think about, right? Man, I remember talking to Zeb Coulter, a.k.a. Dutch Mantel, former WWE star, who worked for TNA Impact Wrestling, which used to air on Spike TV around the same time that the UFC was on Spike TV. And I remember him telling me that when he saw Kimbo Slice online, he was like, oh my God, we got to sign him. And he pitched Kimbo Slice to TNA, and none of these guys knew who he was. So TNA never signed him. He would have been a perfect pro wrestler. Great look, great physique. Probably wouldn't be a great worker, but man, he had star written all over him. And people were scrambling, what are we going to do with this Kimbo Slice guy? Elite XC, they saw dollar signs, they picked him up, became a huge star, drew record ratings. Yeah, he wasn't a great fighter. Yeah, his fights weren't great. Yeah, it didn't end well against Seth Petrozelli, that's for sure. But the guy drew ratings, and people thought, okay, he's a flash in the pan. He's done, all right. He got destroyed by this light heavyweight. Okay, he's done. Nope. The UFC also saw dollar signs, cast him for The Ultimate Fighter, Tough, and he was on the season with Roy Nelson, all the heavyweights. He drew the highest ratings for a fight on Spike TV. I believe it was 6 million viewers or something like that with Roy Nelson. Ended up losing another fight to Matt Mitrione. I believe he had an awful fight with Houston Alexander, if I recall correctly. And that was it for him in the UFC. So he went away for a while, did boxing, beat a bunch of cans. I think he went 7-0 in boxing. I mean, those fights were not competitive at all. And he just kind of was off the grid. He was a trivia note, like whatever happened to Kimbo Slice. And I would assume he made a lot of money, and I would have hoped he saved his money. And yeah, he was just kind of laying low. Scott Coker takes over Bellator MMA, Spike TV in full control. And what does Scott Coker do? He gives a call to his old buddy Kimbo Slice. Kimbo Slice fights Ken Shamrock, and the fight that was supposed to happen on the final Elite XC show before, Ken went down with an injury last minute. Lots of chaos. Seth Petrozelli stepped in. He seemed like an easy fight for Kimbo. It was far from an easy fight, and, the rest is history. So we had that fight. It was actually somewhat competitive. I mean, Ken took Kimbo down. Looked like he was going to choke him out. Kimbo somehow escaped and knocked the hell out of Ken Shamrock. Drew huge ratings. Then they had Kimbo versus Dada 5000, which I guess dates back to a beef that started on YouTube. And those guys had a horrible fight. But again, they drew ratings. And here Kimbo was getting ready to fight James Thompson. And this happens. So if you're wondering, while we're all trying to process this shocking news here, this tragic news. I mean, this guy, from what I understand, was a super nice guy. I mean, I used to work at Spike. I know people that worked with him. They have nothing but nice things to say about him. They say he was a gentle giant. I talked to my buddy Paul Lazenby. He's been tweeting at Muller MMA on Twitter, talking about how he expected Kimbo Slice to be this diva about a decade ago, and he was the opposite. I mean, you hear so many people, Jeremy Botter, a bunch of people, tweeting such nice things about this big intimidating guy who seemed to be a teddy bear at heart. And it's just, man, I mean, you never want to see anybody go out that young, but, man, this is a guy who, again, was not a good fighter, okay? Was never going to be world champion or anything like that, but he just made such a positive impact. When he was on, people watched. He just had that it factor. They call it it factor in professional wrestling, where you walk into a room, you own that room. That's what Kimbo Slice had. He had that it factor. He put asses in seats. Man, it's just shocking to me. It really is. So I don't know what else to say other than, rest in peace, Kimbo Slice. My deepest condolences to his loved ones. Such a sad freaking story, and his legacy is going to be intact. This guy drew money. At the end of the day, all those millions of fans that tuned into his fights aren't going to remember the fact that, oh man, he wasn't in the best shape, or it wasn't this, or was that. No, they're going to remember when Kimbo Slice stepped into that damn cage. You knew it was on. You knew it was game time. You knew it was must-see TV. And while he spent only a short amount of time on this earth, he made one hell of a positive impact. Rest in power, Kimbo Slice.